Hi, this is episode 21 now, and in the last episode, I was talking about the accommodation that we all had a lot of fun with and did our escape from um, at Suzuka. It was this big apartment block that's on a trading estate that Mr. Akagi had bought to house us all in. But anyway, we got out of there and we were off to the circuit on the Sunday morning for the Japanese Grand Prix, and it's one hell of a place to get into. I mean, the amount of fans that turn up at Suzuka. I mean, it's phenomenal. Well, it certainly was back in those days because you had a lot of Japanese involvement. There were huge numbers turned up to see Senna with Honda and everything like that. But Mr. Akagi and Leighton House had really gone to town with trying to promote the brand at this Japanese Grand Prix, and it was. I mean, everywhere. I mean, all our team gear was all green, and it was a bright colour, so you could spot everybody in the crowd who were wearing all the Leighton House green, and I think a great big area of the main stand opposite the pits seemed to have been given over, and I think they must have bought thousands of tickets to get all of the Leighton House supporters in, and yeah, it was a fabulous sight. But onto the onto the racing aspect of it. I mean, we'd qualified pretty well for this race. Capelli had qualified fourth, Mauricio 13th, which was and Ivan qualifying in that position was sort of establishing that he was a fairly top runner at the time, and certainly amongst the normally aspirated teams. And we'd finished second on the podium in Portugal at the last race. So to qualify fourth at Japan, which is a real power circuit, was such a good effort. We get to the grid, and of course we're fourth on the grid. We're on the second row, so we've got a hell of a lot of people visiting us around the. I mean, any time on the starting grid, there's always far too many people on there. But we were prepping the car, and then we had word that a couple of people were coming to visit us, and for myself and my sort of music aspirations and my musical heroes, two of mine turned up to come and say hello on the grid, and that was Eric Clapton and Mark Knopfler, which was terrific. There's a couple of videos actually from the race day, which I think were filmed by Channel 9 of Australia. And what I'll leave the links for these videos in the description below, and you can have a look at those. And I'm giving you a little bit of a thing about what happened on the day, but they're quite interesting, these little videos. They were with the team, and they were looking at what was going on and all the rest of it. And as I say, Clapton and Knopfler are on there. Apparently Elton John was around somewhere, but we didn't see him. But anyway, the race started, and as Senna had sort of fretted about, he didn't get a good start, and I think Prost went and took the lead. Senna he balked the start, but we were going around and around, and up to about Capelli was running in fourth, and then he got into second place, and on lap 16. He was coming, and I mean, I remember we all stood in the pit lane. We stood on tyres and everything like that, because we knew that Ivan had got a chance of getting in the lead of this race, which in the land of the Honda and the McLaren, turbos and everything. It was almost unheard of. But sure enough, lap 16, the cars are coming down the main straight, and Capelli got just in the toe of Prost, and he overtook, and it was a great move, and I mean we were ecstatic about it in the pit lane. It only lasted a few hundred yards, and I think sort of down to the next corner, then Prost went past Ivan again, and sadly 3 laps later, the car stopped out on the circuit. It was apparently an electrical problem. My sort of little take on it, which was it was a bit of fun, but over the years, I always thought that because we got the car back to the garage after the race, plugged the starter in, and it fired up straight away. But I thought Honda would have hated a normally aspirated engine car overtaking them at their home Grand Prix, and I thought they've jammed the ECU on the from the pit wall. They've done it on the telemetry, and they've jammed our signal and stopped our car. But of course, that was just a silly fanciful thought. But yeah, Ivan was at the race. Mauricio, I think he finished in 10th place, which was a lap down, but that wasn't too bad around Suzuka. And so that was it really. So we started packing up. Senna had won the World Championship. We started packing up, getting ready to send all the freight out to Australia. And one of the things that we had to do, because Gugelmin had an accident in qualifying on the Saturday, and really done a lot of damage to one of the cars. And what happens was all the freight had to be sent, as I say, from Japan to Australia. But we had the Australian Ministry of Agriculture come round to visit us, and I mean they went to a few teams. If teams had got any, they'd had any accidents or things like that. But what they had to do was seal all of the damaged parts from the cars, any bodywork, certainly radiators, things like that could collect spores of grass and things, because the Australians are very, very tight on letting things into their country that can, maybe multiply and cause them harm and that. So we had to wrap up all of the damaged parts of the cars, take them up. The Ministry of Agriculture people, the Australian guys, they sealed it all up, and then we had to pack it all up in a separate box, and then that would be sent to Australia. But we did all of that. We packed up, and then we went off to the Circuit Hotel, and did what we did best, which was have a party. It was, I'm sure loads of beer was drunk and everything. As I say, if you have a little look at the videos, which I'll put the link to, you'll see that we had a lot of good fun there. But one of the things also that we did do in Suzuka, because it's almost like a little Disneyland type place. There's fairgrounds, there's everything like that. But there was one little place up there, and it was called the Log Cabin, and it's quite a legendary place among F1 people, or as the Japanese would call it, the Rog Cabin. But it was a place where there was just loads of karaoke going on. Wherever you go in Japan, as I said before, there's karaoke. And I can vividly remember being sat in this log cabin with singing at the top of my voice. And I've got Ken Tyrrell, like the Tyrrell team owner, on the one side of me. And I've got a guy called Paddy McNally, who was one of Bernie Ecclestone's men. Paddy McNally was at one time like Sarah Ferguson's boyfriend, and he ran a company called All Sport who handled all of the track advertising and promotions and everything like that. So it was a bit of a surreal thing, really. As I say, we're singing along to these corny songs, and just as we were doing that, Ayrton Senna came in, and he ended up getting drowned in champagne and all the rest of it because, again, he just won the world championship. So yeah, fun and games, but somehow we probably got back to our digs in the on the trading estate and getting ready to fly out to the best race of them all in Adelaide in Australia.